What is up, people of the internet? I'm JPro, or Cold Parasite, whatever you like to call me, and today I'm going to be talking about politics. Nothing specific within the realm of politics or anything like that. I'm going to be more talking about the fact that people like to get political and all that and stuff. Or like, you know, for example, people want to have like a political debate or whatever, have some discourse. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, the sun. Nothing wrong with that. I think it's good to have these discussions. Like different things about like, stuff in the government and all that, and immigration and all that. You know, I think it's important to have these discussions. What I don't think is important is arguments, because that tends to happen a lot within politics nowadays, where it's not really a debate anymore. It's just like, I'm right, you're wrong, sort of thing. Where like a lot of people, tend to get in their feelings on their facts, where, they have, not most of the time, sometimes, they'll have their sources or whatever. They're pulling, their stuff they're pulling their arguments from the sources, gathering their, topics together to, make their point and whatnot. But then they, when the other side, you know, isn't hearing them out, and this happens on both sides, by the way. Okay, don't get twisted. The other side is being closed-minded and like not trying to hear them out. They're being wrong, but at the same time, the other side, they hear them shutting them out, and so then it just turns into a like I said, a whole argument where it's I'm right, you're wrong, and that's not really how it should be. And like I said, it doesn't pertain to just one side. Both sides do it, the left and the right, conservatives, liberals, whatever label you want to put on it. Obviously there can be some, overlays, like sometimes there can be, left-wing Republicans, whatever, because it obviously all doesn't mean, the same thing. It doesn't fall under entirely the same umbrella. Sometimes there can be some overlaps of like, different beliefs clashing together. Like, for example, I'd say I'm more centrist in a way, but a more political, way to put it, to actually put an actual label on it. I'd say I'm probably a left-wing conservative technically, but I think I'm really I see it more as to put a label that I'd actually want to put on myself. I'm like a more of a centrist, really, more like middle ground, moderate, like leaning, all that. But there are some viewpoints that lean me towards being Republican, and some viewpoints that lead me to be a leftist. Like, for example, I think we should be accepting of all kinds of people within reason, of course. Obviously, don't accept like pedophiles or whatever. But like in general, I think it's good to be accepting of all people of different backgrounds and whatnot. People with disabilities, people of other ethnicities. I think it's important to be kind to each other. Obviously, that's sort of a leftist ideal, I guess. But then I also, on certain subjects, am pretty conservative. Like, I think that one big thing, I guess, would be that I'm sort of, and this might seem, like being a hypocrite, but not really, because one big thing for me is like I'm sort of anti-trans, but in my perspective, the way I see it, not even really the way I see it, because I feel like it's just the truth that like, not I feel like, it is the truth that, some people aren't the gender they are. But at the same time, they're, these people can have legitimate gender dysphoria and all that. And, I think it should be treated, excuse me, I think it should be treated correctly, and not just, by making them transition. There's other ways I think they can, fix themselves or whatever. And I do think it's something that should be fixed, because it's classified as a, mental disorder or whatever. At least I'm pretty sure. I know it's in the realm of that. But anyways, yeah. So, yeah, pretty much, I see myself, not being super leftist on that specifically, because, also the fact that, the drugs transgenders use to, make themselves appear the opposite gender, it could be damaging to themselves, and I think it's pretty messed up that they, just kind of don't care. And not that they don't care, but like, they think that, it's like not as bad as you might think, where like they say like, oh, well, it's in the long run it'll be good or whatever. It's like, no. But anyways, I'm getting a little bit off topic. My main point, I can't hold the camera with that hand. My main point is that, people tend to get in their feelings with politics, and that's not how it should be, Obviously, you can't stop people from having emotions. Hold on one second. Okay, just had to sort of take a deep breath. Anyways, yeah, people tend to get in their feelings about, politics and all that, and like I said, it shouldn't be that way. We should keep it civil, and we should keep it, within, I'm gonna sound like, Ben Shapiro right now. We gotta have facts and logic, and not emotions. Facts don't care about your feelings. Obviously there's things that I disagree with, Ben Shapiro on, and all those other, people in that, Republican sphere. But I also disagree with a lot of stuff on the, the liberal side, the leftist or whatever, Like, another thing I disagree with, the liberal ideology on or whatever, I guess, is like, taking it too far with accepting certain individuals. Like, for example, let me go back to what I said earlier. Obviously, we're not going to be accepting of pedophiles. They fuck kids, and that's obviously horrible. But there was, a couple years ago, there was some dumbass people trying to protect them or whatever, and call them, like, minor attracted persons, MAPs. It was the most retarded shit ever, and it was, if you look into it, it was pretty, like, leftist of them to think we gotta be accepting of them or whatever, because, like, that's how leftists tend to be, and liberals, whatever. I'm not sure exactly, like, the exact definitions of, like, what constitutes a liberal but not a leftist or whatever. Same thing with, like, right-wing conservative, whatever. Like, it's the same realm of, like, political, like, terminology or whatever, but obviously they mean different things. But I'm not gonna get into that too much, but I will say this: at the end of the day, we're stuck on this big rock made of fucking meteors or whatever. What am I saying? That's not true. It's not made of meteors. I don't know what I'm saying. At the end of the day, we're stuck in this big rock together. We should get along. If we're not going to, then, well, that's fine. But let's try not to kill each other and all that. But can't stop each other from doing that really either, huh? And that can get political too. If, like, oh, he targeted him for this, that's why he killed him or whatever. That can get pretty political, depending on the circumstance, like, with Charlie Kirk and all that. But I'm not going to get into that. That's a topic for another video. If you even want me to talk about that, I may or may not talk about that. But anyways, yeah, to put it back all together, to stop the rambling, there's political ideals that are bad on both sides, and political ideals that are good on both sides, For example, conservatives believe in, family togetherness or whatever. They believe in the classic, 50s style family, which obviously, not literally 50s style, like, don't beat your wife and all that. But, just family togetherness, traditional family and all that. I think that's a good thing. And, like I said, I think that we should be accepting of all kinds of people. That's a pretty, leftist thing, I would say. And, it shouldn't even be political. It's just a common decency sort of thing. But, some people, or a lot of people, put a, woke label on it or whatever. And you know what? If being accepting of everyone and being nice to everyone is woke, then fuck it, I'm woke. I don't give a shit. But and I might get some people trying to shit on me for being woke or whatever, but if you don't like that I'm accepting of all kinds of people and don't care about their ethnic background or their sexuality or whatever, then I'll tell you right now, whatever it may be, you're either a racist or a sexist, homophobe, whatever, and it's just not cool. But if you're gonna be like that, I can't stop you. So leave your hate comments if you want. I had to spit real quick. I gotta spit on the hater. Leave your hate comments. I didn't mean to make that joke, but I guess I did. But yeah, and I think obviously, I might get some, people on the other side mad at me for being all like, they're probably gonna, get mad at me for, being anti-trans or whatever, transphobic, which is the stupidest shit ever. Because, I mean, for one thing, I don't hate transgenders, and I'm not scared of them either. Because why would I hate them? A lot of them are, messed up in their mind and they need help, and I think that they should get the help that they, the right help that they need. And I don't think we should just be catering to their delusion that they're trapped in because of their disorder or whatever it's like actually called, disorder, mental illness, whatever. Yeah. And I've been rambling for too long, so I'm just gonna end it now. So hope you got what I was trying to say, and bye.